it's Vanessa the Crafty Gemini. I post weekly videos right here on my YouTube channel, and in this video tutorial, I'm going to show you how I like to make my embroidered key fobs. If you're someone that struggles to come up with gift ideas and projects to give the guys or men in your life, I think you're gonna like this one. It's fun, it's practical, it's customizable, so you can add like number one dad, or you can add best friend, or whatever it is that you want on it. Now for this project, you will need to know the basics of how to use your specific make and model of embroidery machine, and maybe some digitizing software also. Now the software, it could be that you have a machine that allows you to do it built into the machine, or that you're using some separate digitizing software that has to be installed in a computer. So for this is not really going to be a super entry-level tutorial for embroidery. You will need to have some base knowledge of how to put together a name or a line of text down to a specific size with the correct spacing that you want in between it, and be able to position your specific machine to stitch out exactly where you want it to. Aside from that, I'll be walking you through step by step. It can be a little finicky because we're working on such a thin strip of pricey cork fabric. Okay, so I would definitely recommend that maybe you stitch this out on sample scraps just to make sure that you familiarize yourself enough with your machine to be able to get it right where you want it to stitch out. Other than that, I hope you enjoy this tutorial. Let's jump right into it. So to make one of our key fobs here are the supplies that you're gonna need. A strip of cork fabric, all right? That's what we're using. That's what you see here in the aqua color, and it comes in a variety of colors. Then you're also going to need cotton webbing. And then the little key fob kit comes with these two pieces of hardware. This to clamp it here, and then the little keychain ring that you can then attach here, so you can attach it to a purse, a wallet, or your keys, okay? So I like to start off with a piece of cotton webbing that measures 12 inches in length, and you can trim it down. You can see that this one was a little bit shorter, about 11 inches, and it still gives you enough clearance depending on the size of the hand, but 12 inches is fine to start off with. Then I cut a piece of cork that measures 1.5 inches wide. Notice that the finished cork strip is going to be a little bit narrower, so you just want to give yourself a little bit more wiggle room, and then we'll go back and trim it down before attaching it to the webbing. So you also have to account for the width of where the cork is going to be cut before you can go in your digitizing or embroidery software and come up with the name or the text that you want to include here. So all these are sizes that we need to think about, because the text here has to be smaller than the 1-inch finished cork strip, enough to give us space still to go over and top stitch it on both sides to attach the cork to the cotton webbing. So I hope that makes sense. I don't like to cut the cork to the size of the webbing just yet. We can wait until after we embroider on it to cut it down to size. Now in the hoop here, I just have a 5x7 hoop, and you can use a variety of stabilizers. I've used sticky back tearaway, regular tearaway, cutaway. They all work fine. So here I just have some tearaway hooped in here. I am going to float this because the cork is quite expensive, so I don't want to waste it. I've cut the strip here at 1.5 inches wide, and you're going to want to center this here, either with some temporary spray adhesive or with some basting glue. Now I'm just going to put a little bit in place. This is safe for the sewing machine and the needle to go through. And I'm just going to center it, running down the center here to the center of my strip at the bottom. If you're wanting to add pins to secure the cork in the hoop, make sure that you do so away from where it's going to be stitched, and that it doesn't show up in the middle of your cork, because it will kind of leave holes in the fabric itself. So I'm just going to put a pin at the top, a pin at the bottom. Now in your embroidery software, you're going to want to design something like this. You want the text to be no taller than about 5/8 of an inch high. And then you want it to be no longer than 5 inches or so, because it's going to take up this whole space here. And we'll have a look. Up to here is 5 inches. So I typically have the design or the text go, you can have it go the whole way around if you'd like, but if you want it to kind of just show up here, you can figure out how to space each letter so it's evenly spaced. You know, if you're familiar with embroidery software, you know all the different things that you can do with it. But once you have that done, I have text here that's no taller than 5/8 of an inch tall. Let's go ahead and install this, pull up the design, and stitch it out on our cork fabric. Now when it comes to the embroidering part, you want to make sure that if you started your strip right here, that you don't start the embroidery design that high up on the strip either. You need to leave yourself some visual kind of just blank space. And then the hardware, once you attach it, does take up about 1/2 of an inch up top. So I like to come down about 1 inch from the top or a little bit more depending on how long the name or the text that you're embroidering is. So I have the name Lawrence here, this design already uploaded, ready to stitch out on my machine. And I like to just kind of walk the machine over to the first stitch so I can see where it's going to start. And this is where it's going to start, or this is the beginning of the name. The L will be here. And you can see that from where the needle position is to all the way up top here in the strip, I don't want to waste all that space and have to trim some of it off after to create the key fob. So instead, I'm going to move my machine's needle position further higher up closer to this edge so we don't waste chunks of cork, because again, it is pretty pricey. All right, so let's scoot this up and let's check where the first stitch is going to stitch out. And I think I like that a little bit better. So let's go ahead and set it there and let the machine do the stitching. All right, and once you're done with the embroidery part of it, remove your pins. If you have a tearaway, you can tear it away. If it's a cutaway, carefully cut it away from the back. And you can do several of these in one hooping if you wanted to, with different colors of cork. Just got to do a little math for the placement part of the stitching. All right, so now we are going to cut this down to 12 inches in length. You can always use this for another little bit of a project. Now we need to trim this strip of cork down to 1 inch total width, but we want the text to be pretty much centered in there. So it's a little bit bigger. Remember, we cut this at 1.5 inch wide. We need to take away a little from the top, a little from the bottom, but we still want it to be nice and straight. So a few different ways you can do it. I would suggest just kind of eyeballing down the middle and lining up the 1/2 inch mark on your ruler down the center. That way you're going to get it pretty much there. You're going to trim a little bit off the top. Okay, we want the name centered. We still need a little bit of cork fabric above the text and a little bit below it. And I think that looks pretty good to me. So and if that happens, you got to stop and put some pressure down on the cork fabric. Because remember, we have the thread buildup plus the stabilizer on the back, so it may slide out. But just hold your cork so you can get it to it like that. Now we're going to come flip the strip over and we'll lay the ruler on the other side. Now you want to trim a little bit from this side. And this is something that you can kind of go a little back and forth until you get it to right to where you need it. And I think I can still trim a little bit more. Remember, we want 1 inch wide for the finished measurement. But give yourself some space for the stitch line, because you need to stitch the cork to the web. So then you trim down your strip so that the text is centered, and the full width of that cork strip with the embroidered text on it is just 1 inch. You see from here to the edge of the yellow cork, it's 1 inch wide. Then you're going to get your webbing and your strip, and you're going to adhere this right to it, centered. Notice you want to see a little bit of the webbing above and under. I like to use a machine safe glue stick, so I'll just add some glue here. Once you've top stitched it into place, go ahead and trim away whatever you have left, kind of clean it up a little bit. And And then we're going to grab our hardware and some pliers. For finishing off our hardware, the first step I like to do is to fold it in half and then take it over to my sewing machine and stitch through both of these ends so that it holds everything in place, and I know that when I go to install the hardware, it's not going to slip on me like one come out of the actual hardware clasp here. Now that the ends are connected, we know they won't move. Next step is to install the hardware. I like to set it up so the smooth side is on the side that's facing the text, and then on the other side you'll see that it has two little carve outs basically of these two little metal pieces that are going to clamp in and bite into the fabric. So I like to put those towards the back. Now center it in there as best as you can, and I will then grab a little piece of batting doubled up and just place it over it, just so that we don't hurt or scratch or kind of make any marks onto the metal part. And then I'm just going to crunch it down with my pliers. And you can see that I've grabbed it on one end, pull away that batting fluff, but this side is still open. So I'm going to, see how that's working there? Come around to the other side. Make sure it's all the way in there. And just give it one good press. All right. And I always like to go back and kind of just finish squishing everything in place. And there you go. Make sure it's nice and compressed there, and you're good to go. All right, and that is it for this fun embroidered and customized key fob tutorial. I hope that you enjoyed checking that out. Maybe you were thinking about stitching through cork fabric but never thought to embroider through it. It stitches up like butter, whether you're using it for a project like a purse or a wallet or something, or just embroidering some fun names and text lines like we did in this specific project. So I hope that you'll check that out. As always, I'll include a link in the description box below, as well as the little lowercase letter I in the top right-hand corner of your video player on where you can click to find the supplies and materials that I featured in this video tutorial. Thanks again for watching, and if you enjoyed it, make sure to hit it with the thumbs up below, share it with your crafty friends, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.